So when observing CPS in action, like in the grocery store, you have a kid having a fit, and it can look and be misconstrued as a parent giving in or giving up too much power to the child. It can make it look like it's a spoiled kid and that the parents have no control and can't do any limit setting. What do you recommend to a parent who takes on this, task of learning CPS and really getting successful with it? They're battling conventional wisdom when their mother-in-law says, "Stop spoiling that kid." What are your words of wisdom? What can they say?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is you know what your child needs, and you should be guided by what you think your child needs and not by what the person next to you in the produce section thinks your child needs. People who don't live with challenging kids think that the way that they were raised and raise their kids produces a well-behaved kid, which is a bit of an error in logic. Fact of the matter is they probably, luck of the draw, got a kid who was wired well to tolerate frustration and assume that the way they parent is, they caused this kid to get around the world so easily. So you really don't know it until you are a parent of a challenging kid and you realize, oh, if only it were that easy. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that when you are doing what we call Plan B, when you're doing collaborative problem solving with a child, you're not relinquishing any control. You are aggressively pursuing your concern and making sure that your adult expectation and concern gets met. The difference, of course, is that you're making sure that the kid's concern gets addressed too. And if somebody standing next to you by the green peppers thinks that's not the way to parent, so be it. You're going to do what you think your kid needs.
Yeah, that's great, but again, I want to get to that. You have children. You've had 2-year-old tantruming kids. What would you recommend? You're in this heated situation. What's a tagline?
Well, but the heated situation is this is the worst time to show anyone what the approach is about, convince anyone that this makes sense. We all look silly in the heat of the moment,
right.
And in public just even worse, myself included. Get a worked up kid around an adult, we get worked up too. Right. We all lose IQ points, and it can get ugly pretty quickly.
Right.
What's most important though is after an incident like that, you step back and you say, well, what happened? Why did that happen? And what can I do to prevent it the next time around? In terms of helping other people see what this is all about.
Like a little elevator speech.
Well, what sometimes is useful to people is to help them realize that your kid's difficulty tolerating frustration is no different than their kid's difficulty with reading, math, or writing. And it requires a different approach in the classroom for helping their kid with those skills that they're having a difficult time with, and yours requires a different approach. And if they only knew what it was like to be you and to try to just let a kid know they're not going to get away with that behavior. You've got a kid with a learning disability when it comes to frustration tolerance. It requires a different way of interacting with them. That being said, it's not until we make a major shift in conventional wisdom that the average Joe is going to understand what you're doing with your kid using this approach. Now, the precedent is there, though. Years ago, we thought dyslexic kids were lazy or dumb. Now nobody would say that.
Okay.
We'll get there one step at a time, and a lot of data to support it, though.
Okay, so if we have to wrap this up with an elevator speech, if I'm understanding correctly. So I'm a mother of a challenging child, and so my mother-in-law is saying to me, you shouldn't be parenting. So I would say, we've learned that these emotional kinds of outbursts or my son's trouble with frustration tolerance is actually a learning disability. And there's a professor at Harvard that's come up with this. So there you go, something like that.
Well, I don't know that letting people know that Harvard professors and Ross Green and myself were involved, I don't know that will get you far. I think what you want to say is, look, just so you know, I've tried plenty of rewards, plenty of consequences. He's not happy about this either. He knows how I want him to behave. The problem is that he has a hard time pulling it off. And here's a couple of the reasons he has a hard time pulling it off that I'm trying to help him with. And you know what? It would be great if you could help me.
Great.